Now I would like to introduce you to today's speaker who is joining us via Zoom. Today we have with us April Babcock, a founder of the Lost Voices of Fentanyl. After losing her son Austin to a fentanyl poisoning, April turned her pain into community service and founded Lost Voices of Fentanyl, a nonprofit organization devoted to illicit fentanyl education, prevention, and awareness. It began as a rally outside the Chinese embassy, but it grew into something more, and the Lost Voices of Fentanyl Facebook discussion group has become a haven providing bereavement support and encouragement for more than 19,000 bereaved families nationwide suffering through the enormous tragedy of fentanyl poisonings. April has become a beacon of hope and a leading advocate in the nation for bereaved families in the fight against illicit fentanyl. April, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Before I start, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is April Babcock. And just so you know, we're up to 27,000 members now in my discussion group on Facebook, and you do not have to be a bereaved mother or father to join my group. My group is a public group on Facebook because we want the general public to see what's happening on American soil. Our kids are literally right now under attack. We're being deceived. We're being poisoned to death. I never condone illicit drug use, but especially for our youth, I mean, it's almost like a rite of passage for young children to experiment, and now they're just dying. So they don't get a second chance. Once you're dead, and there is no second chance. So we just want to spread awareness as best that we can because our government is not doing it. You know, we keep crying for years now. We want a COVID-like response to fentanyl. Within 3 months of COVID, every American knew social distance, wash your hands, wear a mask. We are now 10 years deep into a fentanyl crisis. And if they would have done a public awareness campaign in 2013 and 2014, when primarily it was heroin users that were being preyed upon, it was being laced into the heroin, unbeknownst to heroin users, and no one seemed to care. And because of them not caring, now we're burying babies and we're burying teenagers, 12, 13, and 14 years old. One try, one experiment, and you can die. 6 out of every 10 pills right now on the market has a potential lethal dose. This is a poisoning of our youth. Where's our military going to be at going at this rate in another 10 years? I keep saying, are we going to have a military? This starts with China. China's the head of the snake. These pharmaceutical companies in China supply the precursor chemicals to the Mexican cartels, and they're pumping out these fake pills into America. You know, us parents, we're standing on street corners, we're holding rallies, where, you know, schools that are allowing parents are going into schools. And I keep screaming, good Lord, let us grieve our children. And we can't even seem to be able to do that because it's more important to us that you do not experience our pain. So we're doing whatever we can to get the word out. But I mean, I keep crying, please, this has to come from the White House. They have to do something different. We're fighting for illicit fentanyl to be put on a weapon of mass destruction list. And there is a petition. I can give it to Caleb so he can send it to all of you guys. There's a petition Families Against Fentanyl has done for having fentanyl labeled a weapon of mass destruction. You know, we're writing our attorney generals, our congressmen, our senators. We want the cartels to be labeled a foreign terrorist organization. All these things, if they are done, that'll give our government tools in their toolbox that they currently do not have right now. I say Mexico is a narco state. People may disagree with me, but they've been killing us way before fentanyl, with heroin, with cocaine, with all these illicit drugs coming from Mexico. We want it stopped. We want it to end. So Lost Voices, we focus on the supply, which is China, Mexico, the cartels, the border's a crisis. We want the border closed. So, it forces people into the ports of entry, which right now, as I'm sure you all know, they're just coming in all along that border. And if you have one sweet and low packet, if that were fentanyl in that sweet and low packet, that has a potential to kill up to 500 people. So how many sweet and low packets can somebody get into a backpack? I mean, this is a crisis in America. It's a national security crisis, and it's all ages. It's not just young teenagers. It's people suffering with a substance use disorder. My son suffered with a substance use disorder, but he didn't last long. He suffered for about 5 years. I mean, the last 4 years worse than the first two. But like I always say, his chances of sobriety, that they were stolen from him because of the fentanyl in his drug of choice. If it wasn't fentanyl, my son would be alive. What he did that night would not have killed him. He didn't ask for fentanyl. He didn't want fentanyl. He didn't know fentanyl was in that drug. He just got his hair cut the day before. He had plans to go out that night with his friends. People, and that's what I say, people suffering with a substance use disorder, they're dying. They don't even have a chance to recover anymore. And now it's spread out, and now it's first time, experimental, occasional users, and now babies. You can go on the internet or you can join my group and you will see story after story of babies dying. How are babies dying? They don't have a substance use disorder. They're dying because caregiver, parents, siblings, grandparents abuse drugs, and they're leaving whatever laying around for these toddlers to get a hold of. This is something different. This is instant death in the drug supply, and everyone needs to stand up. Help us parents, fight back, write your politicians, call them, write your legislators. We need help. We need help. And I just believe until there's more people screaming about it than not, we're going to continue to have these funerals. And we just need to get the word out there and do whatever we can.
April, we're so grateful to have you here with us today and you sharing your passion and the way that you have turned your pain and your grief into purpose is so important. And I want to say thank you to, our Rotary Club and Rotary family for supporting this, because it is such a huge crisis. We're looking at 20 years now, really, April, correct, that this has been going on. And really just over the past couple years, we're seeing it come a little bit more into the mainstream media. And with it being the #1 killer of Americans age 18 to 45, why do you feel like it's not getting the attention that it deserves for the crisis that it is?
I mean, I just don't understand why it's not getting the attention. And honestly, I can tell you the only reason it's getting any attention now is because the age of the people dying, the young kids from the fake pills. We put it this way. It's kind of no different than AIDS. No one was talking about AIDS because that was a gay people problem until Ryan White, the 13-year-old, got it through a blood transfusion. And that's kind of how it is with the fentanyl. No one cared because that was heroin users' problem. But now that we've got young kids dying, now it's starting to be talked about. And actually, a lot of politicians, a lot of people, the news stations, it is getting out there. The word is getting out there, and that's great. But we got to understand the biggest group dying right now that's exploding is under the age of 14. And you might say, why is that? Well, let's get real. Young kids and your brain is not even fully developed until the age of 25. So we're going to warn them. We're going to keep warning them. And there are going to be kids that say, oh, I heard that, mom, or I heard that on the news. but there's still going to be these young kids. They're young and naive, and a lot of them are just, they're young, naive, and they don't think, and they think they're invincible. That will never happen to them, but they're dying. So we have to do, our government has to do something different when it comes to fentanyl. This isn't heroin. It isn't cocaine. This is instant death. So we got to keep the pressure on them until something different is done.
And I mentioned how you're helping so many family members and loved ones. I mean, the amount of grief that we see in that group it's overwhelming and astronomical at times. And, you know, as a daddy, as a parent, I can't imagine what you've suffered and gone through. I can't imagine what these other people have gone through. However, you're helping them turn their pain into purpose and redirect their focus. Would you just share some testimonials with us, April, about families who were just on the brink of losing their mind, maybe considering suicide, but because they joined this support group and community, they turned that purpose and the positive impact that they're now having in spreading awareness to others?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I do get a lot of messages and from a lot of parents throughout the past couple of years, and they literally tell me my group has saved their life. I inspire people to do something because people see what I'm doing. I say I'm a mom who lost their child. I'm not rich. I'm not poor. I have a cleaning business. That's what I do every day. I'm scrubbing floors, and I tell people, if I can do it, anybody can do it. But no something is too small. Anything, like I have a fentanyl awareness shirt on. If that's all you can do, wear a fentanyl shirt. But I tell people, I didn't lose my kid and go out the gate and do what I'm doing. Like, I prayed, and for everybody, the timing is different. I'm not saying it's got to be 6 months or a year. For me, it was 18 months. It took me 18 months of cries, screams, and prayers. I mean, I ran to the cross. That's what I did. I laid it at the foot of the cross, and I did it. Sometimes I had to do it 10 times a day, because grief of a child is just the worst thing any person, I think, can ever experience. It's like, I had Jesus before my son died, and still with that relationship with the Lord, I still was suicidal at times. So it took all my faith and all my hope in knowing that I am going to see my son again. But I'm telling you, 18 months of praying to God to show me what to do with my grief. And when God showed me, I heard from him loud and clear. And I did. And that's when I'm like, I'm having a rally in Washington, D.C. So my first big event was August 27th of 2021 in front of the Chinese embassy.
I'm so grateful for you, April. Talk to us about the rallies a little bit and the positive impact and change that is bringing. Because obviously you're making a statement. And like you mentioned to us earlier, this has to go to the lawmakers. Something has to be changed internally with the law. So just talk to us a bit about that, if you would.
I mean, we are at the mercy of the politicians, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, the politicians make it a political issue. I say to people, I didn't make it political. Blame the Republicans, blame the Democrats. They're the ones who have made this a political issue, but we have to hold their feet to the fire. We just got to keep, it's almost like we got to shame them. And that's why we go in front of the White House, because the more people that show up, the more news coverage we get, the better. That's what the world needs to see, what's happening. I mean, and we're doing it. We don't want to be in front of the White House. I don't want to do any of this. I don't. I mean, but that's what God has put on my heart to do. Like, I'm not just going to sit in my room and cry. We got to get out there. We got to get in their faces, and we got to pressure them. But, you know, another reason why I hold my event, So we have these victim impact banners, and they're beautiful. Virginia Krieger, who was supposed to be with me today on this call, by the way, her son is having brain surgery today. In a few hours, he has his surgery, so that's why she is not here to speak today. But Virginia, God love her, she makes these beautiful banners for our group, and on top of our victim impact banners, we also partner with Can You See Me Now? And they have their own banners. So, you know, we have an event at the National Mall where we display all of these banners, and then we have speakers. But, you know, besides, you know, the raising awareness, these events for us, so I'm talking with these moms on Facebook, but when you meet in person, it's just a bonding experience. I just can't explain it. Like, I know moms, you know, people click with certain people, and then they meet at these events and they become best friends. Like, I see pictures of people on Facebook, you know, oh, I met at the rally, and it's just a bonding experience, and we lift each other up. And I mean, without these mothers and these fathers that I've connected with, I don't know where I'd be, because my group has literally saved my life. When I felt like I'm all alone, I'm not all alone.
So both you and Virginia obviously are working closely with various government and law enforcement DEA officials. Virginia particularly has been working closely with a number of those individuals. In the time that you and Virginia have been working together, what is the positive impact and change that you have seen thus far? Because she's really taken the bull by the horns, you know, with your help to, you know, put pressure on lawmakers for changes in laws.
I mean, pretty much everything good we have out right now, like that these politicians, everything's sitting dead in the water. It seems like there's like the Stop the Cartel Act, Stop Fentanyl Act. There's all these things out there, and they all seem to just be sitting there. So that's why I tell people we have to pressure them. We need the majority of the Democrats screaming the same thing as the Republicans. And it is just a fact. They're sitting dead in the water because of the Democrats. That's not my fault. People may not like to hear that, but it's just the truth. I mean, I speak to hundreds and hundreds of parents that are working with their legislators trying to get these laws passed, and every one of them tell me it's because of the Democrats saying no. And so we got these great bills out there that are just sitting there dead, and then they got to wait till the next year to go back up again. Like in my state of Maryland, I just testified on a bill, me and a couple other grieving moms here in my state. It was for fentanyl trafficking. Right now in the state of Maryland, fentanyl traffickers, they're looking at the maximum of 10 years. Okay, they're serial killers and they're only looking at years. Well, they're trying to amend that to make it 20 years. Do you think that passed? Nope. And it was because the Democrats said nope. So it's going to sit there again till next year. 20 years? 20 years isn't enough. They're serial killers. They're mass murderers. If you're trafficking fentanyl, you know exactly what you're doing. They should get life. Life.
So you mentioned obviously signing petitions, you know, supporting whatever is out there to get attention and awareness to legislation. On top of that, you know, we understand that it's very, very addictive. We understand there's a lot of money to be made, you know, and things like that. But here it is in our nation, creating such a negative impact. And just now we're, you know, starting to gain an awareness about this. You know, what else can we be doing as a community, as a nation, you know, in addition to signing petitions? I mean, why do we not have the awareness at present that there could be? And then after this question, Rachel, I'd love to turn it back over to you and open it up to any Rotary Club members' questions as well.
So a pill in Mexico costs 13 cents. That's what the cartels spend on a pill. They're selling them for $20 to $30 here. This is a billion-dollar industry. They found them. They found the moneymaker, and they know people are dying, but more people are getting addicted. Within 3 hours of ingesting fentanyl, within 3 hours, you are feeling withdrawal effects. It's cheap. It's synthetic, which means it's man-made. Bye-bye poppy. That is the drug of the past. There's no seed to plant. You don't have to tend to hundreds of acres of poppy fields. It's synthetic. It's a never-ending supply, and it's so cheap. And that's why they do it. It's a moneymaker, and they're going to continue to do it until they're forced to stop. Let's take these cartels out. I mean, poor people born in Mexico. I mean, the cartels run that. They run it. They own you there. They kill entire villages of people. I mean, the amount of people that go missing in Mexico every year, it's very disturbing. They're not missing. They're butchered and buried and burnt, and God knows whatever these cartels do to them. They're ruthless, evil people.
Does anybody in the room have any questions for April? I just have one question. When you talk to your local lawmakers, what kind of response do you have to your face? What do they say to you when you talk to them about these concerns?
I hit a big snag in my state. Nobody cares, because before I started to before I had my big rally, that's what I was trying to see. And also I work a full-time job. So I found in the beginning, the only way to really get a hold of them is to go to their office. It was very hard for me. I took a couple days off of work. And when I started fighting back, it was during COVID. So it was impossible to even get in touch with anybody in my state. Every single letter I wrote to any politician in my state was never answered. I kind of had the door slammed in my face in my state. When it came to fentanyl, it wasn't on their radar. They just didn't care. And that's when I really was just like, okay, I'm just going to have a rally in Washington, D.C. No one in my state is even listening.
April, I've got one more quick question for you. You guys have put a lot of time and effort into handcrafting and creating banners and signs, not only for Washington, but for all the events and rallies that you're doing. Could you just talk to our group a little bit about where you most need funds to be directed, and where you need those funds to be allocated to as you get the word out there? Because again, I know you're running a nonprofit on donations, but there is a need there. So just kind of talk to us about where that lies and what you plan to do with it moving forward.
Well, for me, just the rally in DC, it seems to get bigger every year. Like this year, I'm spending almost $20,000 on just the one rally. It's costing almost that much money. Banner stands aren't cheap. I rent a cargo van, computer apps, paper. I cannot even explain to you the amount of money we spend. I wish I knew you were asking me this question, because off the top of my head, but I can send you a list of what we spend money on. It's just, and I would like to do more, but considering one rally costs about that much money, I plan one a year. It would be nice if I could have it 4 times a year in Washington, D.C. If we had the money, we would. I would like to put up billboards, but good Lord, I see what some of these parents are paying for billboards. It's like $2,000-$3,000 a month just to run the billboard for 1 month. So there's so much more we could do, but nothing's free and nothing's cheap.
Yeah. Thank you, April. We so appreciate you being here with us today. Rachel, any additional questions over there?
I don't think so. I think that it's hard to hear some of this, but it's important to hear some of it. The world is a crazy place, so hug your loved ones a little tighter. Mike, we do have one question, Caleb.
Is this recorded?
Yes.
Can we get a link?
Yes. Mike wanted to know if it was recorded, and I can send the link later today. Okay,
Rachel,
yes,
question you can relate it. So
one more
I
question.
don't know as much as I should know about this, but to get over to April. So is fentanyl, for someone who's addicted, is it a drug of choice? Obviously, in the way it's mixed it is lethal poison. I got that. But does someone seek out fentanyl?
Some
Or is
people
it
do.
just-
Okay.
I'll defer to April, but yes,
Let-
is it
let me-
just a weapon?
go
Can
ahead,
I answer
April.
that?
Yes.
So most people are getting dependent on fentanyl by deception. People snorting cocaine, they don't want fentanyl, but guess what? For all those people snorting cocaine that are getting fentanyl and not dying, like I said, within 3 hours, your body's aching. So eventually, yeah, once you're dependent on it, they are seeking it, but it always starts with deception. People doing heroin, they wanted their heroin, and then poof, before long, they're dependent on fentanyl. Once you're dependent on it, you are seeking it, but I always call it a poisoning. There is no safe dose of illicit fentanyl. Just because you can grow dependent on an illicit substance doesn't mean there's a safe dose to take. There is no safe dose of illicit fentanyl. Actually, there's no safe dose of any illicit drug. I call them all a drug-induced homicide.
Fentanyl originally, when it was first created years and years and years ago, it was designed as a drug for end-stage cancer patients that were not responding to any other pain medications. But it was well regulated, and it was administered in a hospital setting. I hate to say it, those people were going to die anyway. The purpose of this was to keep them comfortable. But then when it started becoming mass marketed to add to other drugs and create additional dependencies solely for the purpose of income, that's when it became more of a nationwide problem.
And we got to understand the fentanyl that hospitals are using and the fentanyl for extreme pain patient, like the fentanyl patch, that's not the fentanyl that's killing our kids. The fentanyl is from China to the cartels. These are rogue chemists. There's no quality control. We have no idea. There might be enough fentanyl in one pill to kill 30 people. And then there might be no fentanyl in another pill. They have no idea where this fentanyl is landing. Not a clue.
The other thing that's important to mention that I think a lot of people don't realize is that there have been numerous cases where someone has literally touched the powder and died. They didn't ingest it. They didn't do whatever they do with the needle. Sorry, inject it.
Correctly.
They touched it and were dead. It's
Okay. That statement, I'm not going to agree with that statement. You have to get it in your mouth, in your nose, in your eyes. You can't die from just touching fentanyl. But if you touch it and then you put your hand in your mouth or something like that, yes, you can die.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a comment. We were, I think Justin and I were recently at a training thing, and they said it's no longer being brought in from other places. It's being manufactured right here. It's not being manufactured in Greenville or place. It's being manufactured right here.
In Greenwood.
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
I can't verify that. That's
Right.
just what we heard at the training.
Yeah.
Could
Scary
very well be.
stuff.
Look,
I
any
think-
drug dealer can get fentanyl in bulk. They're drug dealers. They can buy kilos of it and have their own labs in their basement. But drug dealers, like the cartels, these are rogue chemists. We have no idea where this fentanyl is landing, and neither do they. They know people are going to die. But like I say, money trumps human lives.
Thank you, April.
I've got one.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Maybe a comment. The opportunity to work with task force and agree. Some of the potency levels that they're seeing in fentanyl right now is much more potent than it was 3 years ago. So the way they're synthesizing the substance, what we're getting is, 50 times more potent than what fentanyl was 3 years ago.
Right.
So he says we haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah, there's so many analogs of fentanyl. It's just a chemical. They tweak it, and then there's another analog of fentanyl. There's about 15 different analogs showing up on these toxicology reports right now, and they're all more lethal and more potent than fentanyl. Like, and Narcan is the only life-saving tool we have right now. And some of the analogs of fentanyl are Narcan resistant. Some people are getting Narcan 7 and 8 times and they're still dying. Like, this is a crisis. This should be talked about by our White House every single day, just like they did for COVID.
April, real quickly, talk to us for a minute about Narcan. And is it something that we should have close by and on hand, and how accessible is it? Things like that.
Absolutely. Everybody should have Narcan. Because like I said, it is the only life-saving tool we have out there right now. It's like you see somebody choking, you're going to give them the Heimlich maneuver. Well, if you see someone and you think they're overdosing, and even if they're not overdosing, if you give them Narcan, say they were not overdosing, but you weren't sure, and you're like, oh my gosh, I think this person is experiencing an overdose, I better Narcan them. If they weren't, you're not going to hurt them by giving them Narcan. But always remember, Narcan wears off. You must immediately call 911, get these people to the hospital, because it's going to reverse and they can go right back into overdose again. Like I said, some people are getting Narcan 7 and 8 times.
I think that's all the time we have for this morning, but April, thank you very much for being with us. Keep up your good fight. We'll do what we can on our end, and hopefully we'll see this tide turn around in the near future.
We can only pray. Thank you so much for having me.